there should be no law against killing people. I know it's a wrong thing, but hell, you restrict somebody from it, they're gonna want it more.
Disclaimer. In this chapter, we will be discussing the murder of a 16-year-old girl. The details may be triggering for some listeners. Everything discussed, unless released by law enforcement, should be considered speculation. This will be the only warning. Please do not listen if you are sensitive to this topic.
The story that I will be telling today is of the murder of Cassie Jo Stoddart, who is a 16-year-old student from Idaho. So the murder of Cassie took place in Bannock County, Idaho, United States on September 22nd, 2006. Cassie was stabbed to death by classmates Brian Lee Draper and Torey Michael Adamcik. Brian and Torey met each other at the same high school Cassie attended. Brian had moved from Utah. They grew close and quickly discovered that they both enjoyed movies. Specifically, they enjoyed horror. Brian had more of an obsession, it seemed, with serial killers, one of the main crimes being the Columbine shootings.
So that's a mass shooting?
The two students.
Yeah.
That would deck themselves out in trench coats and hide guns and
Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the trench coat mafia, they called themselves.
Yeah, and there's more correlations between Brian and, not that Torey didn't think that too, it's just Brian had a little bit more fascination with it because Brian felt like he was also an outcast, just the same way that they were.
Mm-hmm.
And so he almost related himself to them. And I have a quote somewhere, it's almost glorifying them. And he wanted to do something as great as them.
Yeah. And there are unfortunately a lot of kids like that.
Yeah.
Especially the ones who feel ostracized and bullied. Actually, if you want to do the case, we can, but I know that Eric and Dylan used to walk around with a video camera all the time, and they'd make little horror movies and stuff in drama class and stuff like this, but they always had their video camera on them too. And but there's one that was interesting to me, and I'm not excusing them or anything like that, but they were walking down the hallway. There's just 3 or 4 of them in their little group, and they were walking down the hallway with their video camera on, and there was a group of jocks coming towards them, and they actually got body checked out of the way of the jocks, and that just just the way they reacted to it, to me, seemed like just kind of an everyday run-of-the-mill day of walking down the high school halls for these kids. I don't feel sorry for them just strictly because of the fact of what they did in retaliation to these bullies, but
they were definitely sick, and that's what happens when bullying hits the wrong person.
That's right. That's why we've said before, always be kind. You don't know what anybody else is going through. You also don't know what kind of maybe mental illness is just beneath the surface.
Wired.
That's right. You gotta be so careful nowadays.
And not even careful, just be nice to other people.
Just be kind.
And it's very interesting because Brian looked at them and Torey looked at them like they were the same as them, but in reality, it seems like they actually had friends.
Mm-hmm.
They could approach people in the hallway and say, "Hey, what's up?" Say hi to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
It was not the same scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And they like to almost put themselves in this dramatic role of a movie,
mm-hmm.
and they got caught up in it. They really did. So he had related to the videos the Columbine shooters had taken, showing them as outcasts. And like I said, he felt the same. Later on, Brian had described his life as being worthless. And again, that's him comparing his life to the bullied Columbine shooters. His life was worthless. He didn't feel like he was worth anything, and he was a nobody, and he wanted to be somebody, even if that somebody was a cold-blooded murderer. And in fact, he almost preferred it that way.
I feel like it's not, I don't know the right word, but it's not desensitization. It's just the glorification. Like even the fictional movies like Halloween and Scream, it makes these killers out to be larger than life almost, and for an outcast to put himself on that level.
And they almost want to be romanticized, and it has
Absolutely.
been proven time and time again. People like Stu, they like Billy from Scream, and these are the Scream murders.
Mm-hmm.
People even like Ted Bundy. I don't get that. I don't get the Jeffrey Dahmer thing. I think that's fucking weird.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
weirdos.
Spoiler alert, let's look at Scream 6. Are we allowed to do this? Are we allowed to say stuff about movies that just came out, whatever?
6 isn't out. 6
is out. I just watched it.
No, 5. You watched 5.
Okay, well, 5 then.
6 is coming out in March.
Let's look at Scream 5. Billy Loomis didn't seem...
Spoiler alert.
I said spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Okay, sorry.
Billy Loomis wasn't portrayed to be this evil, sadistic serial killer that he was in the previous, in the original Scream movies. So, there's also that side of it too. So you're looking at a different generation who's now going to get into these Scream franchise movies, and they've heard about Billy Loomis and they've seen that movie. But now all of a sudden, Scream 5, he's the father of this girl who she sees, who's not the villain.
I mean, she's seeing him as her dad who killed, but it's just an aberration.
Yeah, but he's helping her survive. You know what I mean? There's a different...
I think it's showing that she has that serial killer,
maybe,
like,
but
pill
the
in her
nuance
head.
there, nuance there is that, he's a caring father who's looking out for his daughter, and I think that spins a...
And I'm guilty of it. I don't look at Billy Loomis and go, ugh. I go, ha ha ha, he's in this movie.
Yeah, for sure. And that's my point. I did too. I was like, oh, look who it is. How neato.
Yay.
It's not like, I wasn't like, oh, well, he's
which is completely
he's a
different
horrifying
from Ted
killer.
Bundy. Mm-hmm.
No different than Ted Bundy.
Different. It's different. One is an actor playing a role, and one is somebody who did real disgusting things to people and should burn in hell.
And he is.
That, I think it really portrays, if you are just involved with liking somebody's looks, to find a man who did so many brutal things attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Come at me if you will. I'm coming at you back.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's... Well, for me, and I'm not obsessed with Ted Bundy. I'm fascinated by the human mind that becomes that level of sick.
Yeah.
What drove him to do what he did, and how was he able to have a semi-normal relationship all the while doing all the horrific things that he was doing? So I'm going to let you go ahead with the story, but
these boys were stupid.
I think they would have continued on to become serial killers had they not been so stupid.
It really does play into the fact that at least Torey's mind was, his brain had something wrong with it.
Torey?
The frontal lobe or whatever. He, they all said, the cops, everybody, he did not act like his age. He acted still like a very young child. Really? And that comes into, how these people do the things that they do and why they act the way that they do. Right now, Torey wants to appeal because I almost see him sitting there going, it's not fair. He would whine about it at the beginning. Now he's a little bit older. I'm sure he's maybe acting a little bit older now, hopefully.
But also, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here and I'm not remembering it right, but Torey's parents were also like that. They were also saying it's not fair, this isn't right, and
fully his mom is fighting.
They weren't helping him take accountability and responsibility for his part. No matter what his part was, you still need to take responsibility. And as a parent, it's incumbent upon me to make sure that you understand where you went wrong in that situation.
I totally agree. And it is my controversial opinion that Torey has gotten it worse than Brian technically, when there is significantly less evidence against Torey than there is Brian. So it is a little confusing, and we're going to get into that a little bit more, as well as people, and I know you said it once, but people online too, so it's not just you, it's almost like a common to me, misconception that Brian almost accepted his role through telling the truth through 3 interviews, but he didn't tell the truth. He told lies for a while. He said he didn't do it. Torey ran upstairs and did it. And like I said, we're going to get into all of this. And then actually they both were appealing their sentences, which I think shows that they're not sorry enough, both of them. And Brian actually got one of the sentences thrown out. Torey did not. But just going off of what I could find, and going back to kind of like the story, the two bonded. So Brian and Torey bonded over these similarities, and eventually they decided that they were going to make their own scary movie. It's Torey who eventually brings up the movie Scream, giving this crime the name The Scream Murders. And like I said, he didn't quite act his age, and the way that he told the police was like, just like Scream. Like I thought we were just making a movie. I didn't think that it was actually going to escalate to that.
God.
So on the night of September 22nd, 2006, Cassie was house sitting for her aunt and uncle, Allison and Frank, on Whispering Cliffs Drive in northeast Bannock County. Her aunt and uncle were out of town and gave Cassie an opportunity to make some extra cash by house and pet sitting while they were away, which they had 3 cats and 2 dogs, just like me. I was like, oh wow, that is a lot of work. It is a lot of animals to watch, and the responsibility to that is pretty high, which goes into in a little bit where her boyfriend ends up saying like, well, come stay with me and my mom, and she can't leave. She's like, no, I have to stay here for the animals. Yeah, you can't just leave that many animals by themselves. She was pretty much trapped there. It's pretty sad. Cassie had invited her boyfriend Matt over to watch a movie. And in my experience, house sitting was always like a fun experience growing up. It usually meant you could eat snacks, invite friends over, and have some privacy away from home. Like if one of my friends was house sitting and they invited me over, I was like, oh, yay, fun. And Matt arrived around 6 p.m. And later, classmates Brian and Torey came over to the house as well to hang out. Sadly, Cassie gave the friends a tour of the house, including the basement. This likely gave the 2 boys even more confidence in their plan to murder Cassie, as now they had the lay of the house.
So, did I read somewhere, or is this the same thing that you've never seen that I'm talking about, that Brian unlocked the door in the basement while they were down there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That is indeed what he did. He unlocked the door. It's very planned. And this is where it comes into, like, I get that, like, they're both sick. It's just that when you put it all in list form, Brian unlocked the basement door. Brian was, like, he was admittedly the one to do a lot of these things. The ringleader is what it seems like to me. Now, is there that many boys in high school willing to go and murder somebody? That's the question. I don't think so. If I am, and it's hard to put yourself in that position, but if I'm 16 and I think that we're just like saying crazy things just to be funny and fucked up, whatever the fuck they were doing, it is possible, maybe, that they didn't actually think that it was going to get to that point. I think that's hard to believe. I don't believe that, because you made the videos and you obviously had plans to go and kill her. But you know, when they bought the knives, Brian bought 3, spent like $40. Torey spent $5, bought 1 small knife. Did he think in his head, I'm going to use this to kill somebody? Or was he thinking, okay, well, I have $5, so I'm going to get this small knife, and then that way, you know, if I want to use it later for something else, I can. It just, to me, it shows at least more so where their brain capacity was at, is what I'm saying. So Brian acted his age more so, still wanted to kill her. Torey acted like a kid, a sick kid. Torey, I don't think has a chance, but I am worried about Brian possibly getting out one day.
Oh, me too.
So the 4 teens went into the living room to watch the film Kill Bill Volume 2, but Brian and Torey decided to leave about an hour in, saying they wanted to watch a movie at their local movie theater instead. And then it was just Matt and Cassie. So Matt said to police that the lights went out at one point, which naturally spooked Cassie. Matt even called his mom and asked if he could stay the night with Cassie, but his mother said no, and if Cassie wanted to come to their house, she could. Cassie declined the offer. Like I said before, she was being held responsible for those animals and that house, and very sadly, this was a fatal decision. Cassie's body was discovered 2 days later when her aunt and uncle, along with their 13-year-old daughter, came home on September 24th. It was the 13-year-old who first walked into the home, and when she did, she began to scream. Her parents ran inside to see what was happening, and it was then they discovered Cassie's lifeless body on the floor next to the couch. So let's get into that. There was blood everywhere, on the carpet, furniture, and walls. Allison called 911 right away, and I'm going to play that clip here.
What's going on?
Somebody looks dead on my side. Oh my God, it's my cousin's daughter. I need an ambulance.
Let me get you order medical. Stay on the line.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Get everybody out. There's a girl dead on my floor.
Honey, is she breathing?
No, she isn't. She's cold. Oh my God.
She's cold as cut?
She's cold.
Okay, do you want to start CPR?
Her fingers are blue.
Okay, how old is she?
She's 16, 17. And her mom just drove up here. She's dead.
Okay, hon, we're going to get them coming, okay?
Oh my God, okay.
After the 911 call, they called Cassie's mother and stepfather. Once Cassie's stepfather arrived, he called her brother Andrew to let him know what had happened. Andrew said that when he received that call, his stepfather was sobbing on the phone, but managed to let him know that Cassie had been murdered. Andrew stated he dropped the phone and just crumbled to the ground, not knowing how to process the tragic news. Investigators arrived soon after and quickly ruled out burglary. The autopsy report revealed that Cassie had been stabbed 30 times in her chest, neck, back, and abdomen. Between 9 to 12 of the blows were considered to be fatal. She also had defensive wounds on her hands and arms. They first thought of boyfriend Matt, of course. That's who they thought had seen her alive last. Also, when you see a frenzy of stabbing, oftentimes it's because the attacker knows the victim and, perhaps a romantic partner who flew into a rage did it. But Matt was eager to assist in the investigation, and he walked the investigators through the entire day of Friday, and the autopsy report showed that that was the day Cassie was murdered. Matt even told them about how Brian and Torey had come and gone. On September 25th of 2006, Brian and Torey were brought in for questioning for the first time. As they were both 16, they were allowed to have their parents with them. The questioning of the two soon revealed inconsistencies. They both had troubles answering certain questions. Their alibi was supposed to be going to the movie theater, but they couldn't say one fact about the movie. They couldn't describe the plot. Brian just kept on repeating that it was a boring movie, and honestly, the video of the interviews is just rather uncomfortable to watch because, Brian stutters when he lies, and then also, just sitting there and being like, well, the investigators are saying, just tell us one thing about the movie. And Brian's like,
I feel like
can't.
I feel like he stuttered a lot all the time.
A huge part of evidence as well, where Brian literally says he doesn't leave the house in that video and say, we just killed Cassie. He says, I just killed Cassie. It's just a weird thing to say. Back to the movie, he knew that the movie was called Pulse, but nothing else about it. And it was a couple days later that Brian, and this is in quotations very heavily, confessed. Because he does not confess, he just, he spins a story. So Brian wanted to put it on Torey fully at this time. He even went as far as saying he didn't even stab Cassie at first. But the evidence that piled up after his statement was undeniable. Now, the other side of this is that Torey, when being questioned, was really sticking strong to it, which does play into like his sick mind. Like just I truly believe would have went to his grave never telling the truth, like always, and he still is kind of proving that actually right now. And the shock on Torey's face when the investigators come back to Torey and say, like, Brian told us, we know where, your masks are and stuff like that. The shock on his face confirms that.
Aren't his parents sitting there with him, though?
He was sick. Not in frame, at least. Not in the footage. It's just him, and he's hunched over with his head down, and the second they say it, he snaps his head up and looks at them. Like, dude, if you're trying to keep a secret, maybe don't react that way. But
so,
yeah.
The show that you're looking for is called Lost for Life. I can't find it on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not all about them. There's like 3 cases, and they're talking to all the inmates that would talk.
Yeah, no, I didn't
Just
see that. And I couldn't find
killers, right? Lost for Life.
Yeah.
So it shows.
Maybe they took it down because of the thing that I was about to touch on that was ruled.
He's like an adult in this. Like he's.
Oh yeah, I mean it would have been.
This happened
2
in
years.
2006.
Yeah.
So probably 2018ish. So he's quite a bit older in this one. So it's interesting to me to see him admit to his part, unlocking the door, planning it, videotaping.
So Brian's first story was that during the house tour Cassie gave them, Brian unlocked the back door in the basement so that he and Torey could enter again later. When they told Cassie and Matt they were leaving the house to the theater, he confessed they never actually left the property. They went outside for like 10 minutes, went to the car to put on their masks and gloves and grab their knives, and then re-entered the home through the basement. So he told the truth about that. He said they hid in a small room where the circuit breaker was. They had turned the lights off once, hoping Matt and Cassie would venture to the basement where they would scare them. And scare is supposed to be in quotations here because they obviously had other plans. They weren't just trying to scare them. But I think he means scare them and then murder them. They didn't just want to take a life, they wanted to torture and then take a life. When that didn't work though, they turned the lights back on. They messed with the breakers more, hoping someone would come down, but no one did. Matt had left with his mom and it was only Cassie now. When no one came down, Brian's first story was that Torey just ran upstairs and started stabbing Cassie. He was like, yeah, I was just, what? Brian. Yeah. He was like, I was downstairs.
Right.
Torey just ran upstairs and started stabbing her. I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Yeah, totally.
That's exactly what happened, yeah.
So you're a liar. So almost, this kind of reminds me of how I would feel. I feel about Brian the way that investigators and everybody feels about Kegan. It's like, okay, so are we supposed to just believe some of your truths? And but what about the fact that you lie and you lie and you lie and you lie? How do we pick that apart? Through evidence, for sure, and videos. Idiot. Brian's an idiot. They're both idiots. Okay. So in the interviews, especially after Torey finds out that Brian ratted him out, imagine thinking you're going to be this notorious serial killer, the best of the best, and you and your buddy you talk about it the same way and you guys are really going places and whatever, and the investigator comes back in and says, so Brian said that you ran up the stairs and started stabbing Cassie. Imagine just being like, what?
Is that what Brian told you?
Well, actually what had happened was, and that's exactly what happens, he holds out for a bit, but now knowing that Brian's ratting him out, now we're going to play the 8-year-old boy game. He didn't know he did it. So the boys fully turn on each other in the rest of the interviews. Later on in Brian's 4th interview, he says Torey was the first to stab Cassie, and that he did stab her too, but only in the arms and legs. I wonder if he had an attorney by this point. Yeah, right? Okay. That's what I'm talking about. You're slowly turning the lie meter, just waiting to see when the investigators will take it as the final answer. He also said he only stabbed her in the arms and legs because Torey threatened him to and stated like Torey stated to Brian that she was going to die anyway, so you better stab her. Threatened him to do it. And again, so hard to believe this story.
Mm-hmm.
You bought 3 knives, you unlocked the fucking basement door, you're okay with breaking and entering, you talk on a camera talking about how you pretty much glorify murder and criminals and rapists, and we're supposed to believe that that's how that happened. Yeah, right.
And also basically planning the murder on videotape too, right?
In detail. And they end up finding a burnt piece of paper, essentially, that they couldn't make out everything that had been on that piece of paper, but they could make out that it was plans for murder. And on video, they confirmed that they did try to kill other people in Cassie's friend group, but weren't successful because somebody else came over, their parents came back home, something happened, and it would always spoil their sadistic plan to do that. So gross. So, Torey was obviously implicated, but his way to point the finger was to say that he didn't really think they were going to murder Cassie, and claimed he thought they would just scare her. It's like, which is totally not believable. This is when Torey mentioned he thought they were just making a movie like the horror film Scream. The boys had plans to make their own scary movie, or rather a documentary with themselves as the subjects. They had videos from before the murder, which was proof that they had planned this horrendous crime, but also a video of just after the murder of Cassie. You can hear Brian Draper confess during this clip that I'm about to play. He states that he stabbed Cassie in the neck. He also says, "I killed Cassie." Not we, not Torey, I
just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a fucking joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie. Oh, fuck. That felt like fucking real. I mean, it went by so fast.
Shut the fuck up. We gotta get our act straight.
Okay.
And so just to touch on that again, right? So that contradicts already 2 lies in that just very short clip. He didn't just stab her in the arms and legs. He literally says, "I stabbed her in the neck." Where would a fatal wound be? Neck. So to me that says that he was for sure going in for a kill. Now, the reason why I question it is because, is it a coincidence that about less than half of the wounds are fatal? Do we think that Torey had 6 or 7 and Brian had 6 or 7? And that's the part that I struggle with the most, because either one's possible. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if the first place that he stabbed her was the neck, that's pretty cut and dry to me.
Right?
It's a terrible pun, but you know what I mean.
Horrible pun, but yeah.
Stab somebody in the neck, you're not...
It's game over. And I guess it's just really hard for me to believe that, I said before, that there are 2 similar-minded teens who are okay with stabbing somebody to death. This isn't guns.
How do these people find each other?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the part that blows my mind about any killer duo.
How did they have that first conversation that said, "Do you actually want to do it?"
Yeah.
And you know what? The worst thing that in all the videos that I heard from Torey was them talking about killing Cassie or one of the friends. I can't recall right now, and saying, I'm just horny thinking about it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. They thought that stuff was cool.
Mm-hmm.
They both thought cool, which is so not cool. Stu and Billy are perfect examples, and to me it's obvious they idolize these 2 within the Scream franchise. You know, I bet they watched the movie together and they probably sat there going like, "Oh, I'm like Stu and you're totally Billy," and like, you know,
yeah,
watch a different movie. They just needed to watch some comedies and chill out.
It's kind of pathetic. And I mean, I'm not a bully or anything like that, but when I see not grown-ups, but teenagers that aren't like 11, 12, 13 years old who are talking like that, it just screams immaturity to me.
Yeah, and I mean, hella immature for sure.
Like, I'll be Winnie the Pooh and you're Tigger, like, and that's where my mind goes. But you know what I mean? That would be odd. for somebody my age to say to somebody your age.
I mean, when we're watching like a normal adult movie, like for sure, it's like, holy crap, that's you.
Horror
Me.
movie. Horror movie, not adult movie.
But a horror movie, no, I'm not
Horror
watching being
movie.
like, yeah, I'm so Stu. Like, no. Because like they're not relating themselves to, you know, the fact that Stu was funny. No, they're like, ha ha ha.
I'm taller than you.
Oh yeah.
I'm taller and my hair's lighter, so I'm Stu.
Yeah. Or
Just
like I'm
stupid.
the main killer and you're my sidekick.
That's
kind of
right.
thing.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe where their mind was going. So pointing the finger at each other did nothing. There was enough evidence to prove that they both lied and were still coming up with lies. I don't know if they were insane and forgot the things they said on camera, but it came back to bite them in the ass. Brian's lies confused me even more though, and after all this, he told police where they hid the masks and weapons and gloves. This is where they also found the video camera and tapes, so he knew that they were going to watch it, and there were still like lies happening. Why not just tell the full truth, the honest truth, if you were going to do that anyway? So this is when there was a partially burned note found, and they were able to determine that that was plans of the murder and confirmation that they had planned to kill Matt if he was still there. And I would like to talk about the fact that Matt's mom pulled him from that scenario. Because while writing this and getting into it, I pondered how I would feel as Matt's mom. You know, like I thought at first for a very short amount of time, like, oh, maybe if I had let my son stay there, that never would have happened. But then I think at the end of the day, I would have been more like, thank God I did the mom thing by saying, you cannot stay there, but if she wants to come, she can. I think I'd almost feel like I saved my son.
Absolutely.
And it was such a horrible thing because somebody still lost their life. But she really did pull her son out of that situation by being a mom. Like saying, no, you can't stay there with your girlfriend by yourselves.
Yeah.
Get your ass home. And if she wants to come, supervised, for sure. And that is why being a cool mom ain't always the best mom.
For sure.
Be a middle mom. So, breaking down the videos of interest, the first being from September 21st, 2006 at 8:36 p.m. Torey is driving and Brian is in the passenger seat filming. Brian says, "We found our victim, and sad as it may be that she's our friend, but you know what? We all have to make sacrifices. Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart and her friends." So another key piece of information is that although, as per Matt, both boys had flirted with Cassie before, it was confirmed that Brian had asked her out, in which she had declined, and she was dating Matt. She was dating Matt at the time.
Wow. Little pig.
So I think Brian was like a little bit more outward with it, which would explain the videos of before and after as well. Whereas he was like, woo, we did it. He's like, go out with me instead of Matt. Whereas Torey did probably flirt with her and pine after her secretly, but maybe was a little bit more self-conscious, shy.
Respectful of his friend or no?
You know, it is possible because I believe that Matt was closer with Torey than Brian.
Yeah.
And so very much so he could have just been a little bit more respectful of that, because just because they feel a certain way about women, because obviously they weren't against killing Matt, but they were planning to kill Cassie and her friends. They obviously had a thing with killing girls. Could just simply be cowardly, you know? Two little scrawny boys typically don't want to take on another dude. So the recording goes on. Brian says, "We'll find out if she has friends over, if she's going to be alone in a big dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get? I mean, like, holy shit, dude." And that's when Torey says, "I'm horny just thinking about it." And then they laugh together because that's just so funny. Ugh. Torey then says, we're going to go down in history. We're going to be just like Scream, except real life terms. And then he says, that sounds good, baby. And Brian says, we're going to be murderers like, let's see, Ted Bundy, like the Hillside Strangler.
Evil is not an expression of God.
Yes, it
It's
is.
bullshit, you know it.
Evil, of origin, is a follower of fucking Satan.
There is no Satan.
Real? Then shut up.
Then how are we supposed to express ourselves?
Good and bad.
We're bad?
We're bad.
That sounds so shitty.
We're evil. That sounds even shittier.
We're not, okay? They were sick psychopaths do not get pleasure of killing other people.
That sounds good, baby.
We're gonna go down in history. We're gonna be just like Scream, except real life terms.
That
We're gonna be
sounds
murderers.
good, baby.
Like, let's see, Ted Bundy, like the Hillside Strangler,
No.
the Zodiac Killer.
Those people are more amateurs compared to what we're gonna be.
Now, I thought that maybe a possible interesting part of this was the fact that Brian tends to bring up real murders, real things, documentaries, whereas Torey brings up horror movies more.
Yeah,
Scream.
fictional stuff.
And I think that there's something there mentally that explains how they were similar criminals, but they were different. If they ended up actioning their sadistic needs by themselves, I think both of their murders would have looked way different. And so just the combination of those two created this like messy.
Yeah.
I think that's where they went wrong for them, right for us, right for Cassie's family, right for everybody to get that closure. Both trials started in 2007, and they were both charged with murder in the first degree and one count of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree. And they were both tried as adults. They had a friend who helped them purchase 4 knives. Brian had pitched $40 while Torey had pitched $5. Torey got to choose 1 knife and Brian chose 3. The autopsy report did state more than 1 knife was likely used during the murder. To me, that kind of kills both their case because you were both involved. Stop pointing the finger at one another.
At some point, I mean, she died as a result of stabbing.
Your negligence.
To me, it doesn't matter
The specifics.
who stabbed her where. They were both guilty of murdering her.
Mm-hmm. Brian's defense had next to nothing to work on. He admitted to some things, led investigators to evidence, and once again, he literally said on camera, I just killed Cassie. Torey stuck with his story, though, that he didn't think the murder was actually going to happen. He stuck with saying he thought they were just making a movie. And he still sticks to that stuff to this day. They were both found guilty, but Torey took his case through appeals and got it all the way to the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, which was also denied in 2022, not that long ago. Brian also appealed, but not to the same degree. He didn't really have to keep appealing because, he did get a small win when his attorney fought for the conspiracy conviction to be tossed out due to the jury receiving wrong or incorrect instructions. And they won that and it was tossed out. Many opinions of Brian is that he took his conviction and owned it in a way. That because he didn't appeal as much as Torey, he was more accepting of his sentencing. Or that because he kind of told the truth sometimes. And I think the information on his appeal and when to toss out the conviction fully contradicts that theory. To me, it would be different if he had confessed due to his guilt, but he simply put it all on Torey, and we know that they were both kind of equally involved, period. Mm-hmm. There's a substantial amount of evidence that piles up against Brian specifically. I'd say he was the brains of the operation, but that's just the vibe I get. Torey had frontal lobe issues, mental health issues. I'm sure Brian did as well. But the mental health issues, there's no way that he didn't, if he was okay with going along with the murders and, saying the things that he did. But they did say that Torey acted young for his age. And I think mental health really played a huge part in Torey's involvement. It does not excuse murdering an innocent girl. It only explains how one's brain can be altered when struggling with these things and these ideas. And you see that pretty often, you know. I'm wondering about his impulse controls. Also important to take into consideration is the 2012 Miller v. Alabama case, in which the United States Supreme Court ruled that mandatory sentences of life without possibility of parole are unconstitutional for juveniles, even in cases of murder. In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Montgomery v. Louisiana that the Miller v. Alabama ruling should be applied retroactively. The decision made more than 2,000 inmates across the country eligible for resentencing or the possibility of eventual freedom, including Torey and Brian. Like I said, Torey's most recent denial was in 2022, so I'm not sure if this will come into play at a later date for him, but it's definitely something that should be talked about more. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you've already gotten to the 9th Circuit, and it was just denied in 2022, isn't that game over for at least Torey? At least that's my understanding of it. It might be totally incorrect. If somebody knows more about it, please, I'd love it if you could spare a few moments and just reach out to us on Facebook or whatever, and you can let me know. But
I just, I don't know 100% how the American justice system works with their appeal process.
Yeah. It feels game over for Torey, and I think that's also why I focused on Brian more, is that I'm worried that because he already had one thing thrown out,
he might actually
see a day outside of that prison cell. And I'm not worried about Torey getting out. His mom, I believe, has already tried lots of different things to try and get him out. I don't know if it's this case, but is she the one who wrote a book? I think
Dylan Klebold's mother wrote a book, and she's actually I want to say she's a motivational speaker. I raised one of the Columbine shooters. I might seem like I know, but I don't really know a whole lot about that case. I know what happened that day in the school, where they got the guns. I know that Eric had some disappointments with applying for military and stuff like this, and had been in trouble before. I knew
a lot more 7 years ago.
Sure. And when it first happened, I remember when it first happened again.
Yeah.
I'm one of those lucky enough to remember a time when we didn't have the internet and we had to sit and wait for the news to come on to get updates, and watching things like that unfold live on, or not live, I guess, but live recordings on the news. It was just riveting. Couldn't take my eyes off the TV.
It was pretty disturbing. So I did find the book. I guess I decided not to put it in here, probably because I didn't want to give it attention, but I didn't actually find out that she ended up publishing it, whether it's just online. It's very possible. I do know that she went to multiple publishers to try and get her book out there.
His mom?
Yeah. Torey's mom, Shannon. And they all said, no, fuck off. And I did find it on here, so it's something that you can get. It's got 1 star because you can't leave 0 stars, and it's got some vicious reviews, pretty much just attacking Shannon for she protects her son and believes him full force and thinks that he should be out of jail. So they're telling her that pretty much the apple does not fall far from the tree. And the book is just about how she thinks all the odds were stacked up against Torey and that he didn't receive fairness. And I think that is just such a horrible, horrible thing to do, especially outside of the room between you and your son. To take that to a book and to pass that book around and pass around, in it literally says 16-year-old Cassie Jo Stoddart agreed to house sit for relatives on the weekend of, almost saying she agreed. Just the wording, it rubs me the wrong way. Keep My wife's name. Ouch.
Well, I was going to say, that sounds like, and it's an epidemic. There are some psycho moms out there that never hold
That's
their
what the
kids
comments are
accountable.
saying.
And no different than, who's he? Luca Magnotta. His mom is, she's touched. She is special. Again, maybe we can cover that case, but totally believed all of her son's bullshit. And I mean, it's sad as a mother to sit and watch these other women, and fair enough, I do not have all the information, but from what the court system says, these people are guilty. So mom needs to step into a role and teach their kids how to take accountability. And
yeah, and instead it seems like she's attacking the American justice system by comparing the fact that people, young adults, can get away, because I'm calling them young adults. 16 isn't that young.
No, but they're not grown.
No, but
their
pretty much
brains aren't fully
it.
developed.
Obviously, and especially in Torey's regard. Like, I totally acknowledge that. And that's probably why she struggles so much, is because she probably feels that she failed as a parent, because she probably knows that her son has maybe like some learning disabilities and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So she's probably literally seeing like her 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy being tried as a 16-year-old, but then also being tried as an adult. And she's probably having a hard time wrapping her head around it. But it's like, at some point you gotta stop. So, but it seems like she's comparing it to other countries' justice systems, which won't convict a 16-year-old as an adult with no parole. But also, in other countries, you probably get way less for chopping somebody's head off. So I think that's just a horrible comparison. Mm-hmm. I think that, if anything, the justice system needs to be more strict, not more lenient. Though, I guess, with I don't know. Wow, it's hard. Because, like, the people who could be innocent, it's like, oh, well, I wish it was more lenient for them making a murderer. Damn.
What they have to do is they need to start incorporating mental health with rehabilitation, and look at the rates of recidivism. And to me, mental health plays a huge role in everything. All crimes. You can't tell me that a perfectly normal, well-adjusted human being is going to go out and kill one day for no reason. There's an issue there. There's self-defense, sure. There's, no, that's about it. Unless it's a complete 100% an accident, but that's not murder. But self-defense would be about the only way that a well-adjusted human being would take another person's life, without some sort of mental illness underlying. So they need to incorporate mental health into any kind of rehabilitation and accountability.
I agree fully.
Yeah.
Side note, guess what she called her book? The Guilty...
You sure you want to plug it on here?
I feel like if people want to give her $7, but then also tell her that she's a piece of shit, that's up to them. Because that's what all these people are doing. They might be giving her the $7, but they're also just kind of doing it so that they can leave this review attacking her. Like, I think that people can use their own discretion on if they want to do that or not. But it's called The Guilty Innocent, which I'm wondering if she's saying that her son is guilty, but because he was a child, he's
innocent.
He's an innocent.
He's an innocent child who's guilty of murder.
He is an innocent. Yeah. Very interesting. I almost want to get the book to understand where her brain's going on it. If there's anything...
I feel like she should just sink into the abyss and live her life and let her kid learn something in prison. It's unfortunate.
But she's been very involved in these appeals, so I don't think that's going to happen. Even more shocking, though, is that she actually sells it on Amazon for $17, and it has 3.3 star review. That's going to make me think twice about the Amazon reviews before I buy things. How could that possibly be? It does have, ew, oh God, the picture on it? Why would you pick that picture of your son? I'm judging. I need to stop.
Yeah.
Do I see it? Look at this creepy ass fucking photo.
Yeah, she's obviously not all
I
there.
fucking tick. As some final words, I believe Cassie's brother Andrew says it best. He stated, "It makes you appreciate things a lot more. You never know how fragile life is. You never know how easy it is for someone to be gone the next day. We love her. It's always going to be a part of us. It's not like it's ever going to go away. It's always on the back of our minds, but we focus on keeping our family strong instead of focusing on the bad. We focus on the good and when she was still around. Nobody should ever have to go through this." So I think it's safe to say that we will close the book on this one. If there's any updates with the appeals or any new information, we will be sure to update on our Facebook page, True Crime Story Podcast. But besides that, I think this one is pretty much shut and closed.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and share with your friends. If you don't mind giving us a 5-star rating, it'll help our show grow. You can also find us on Facebook at True Crime Story Podcast, where the discussion can continue.
And if you wish to reach out to us, you may do so through email at truecrimestorypod@gmail.com. I'm Bree.
And I'm Shar.
And we'll see you on the next chapter.
Bye.
Bye.